Not even God is wise enough to catch a cheating woman in love. A traditional African novel story from the Amakit Storyboard, USA. Long, long ago, before the winds of civilization blew across the valleys of Udo village, there lived a people strong in their traditions and rich in the wisdom of their ancestors. They believed in their gods. They feared the spirits that ruled the mountains and rivers, and they held to a saying passed down from the elders. Not even God is wise enough to catch a woman in love. It was a saying whispered with caution and fear, a warning that even the gods themselves must think twice before trying to understand the heart of a woman. In Udo, people still feared their gods. They still believed in spirits that lived in trees and waters, and no one dared to mock the ways of the ancestors. Among these people lived a young man named Nzenze. He was born into a poor family of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. His father, Tawanda, was a humble farmer who grew millet and sweet potatoes, while his mother, Mom Moyo, brewed local beer and sold dried fish at the market. Their house was small, the roof patched with grass, and when the rain came, water would drip through onto the mats. Yet, in that humble home, there was laughter. Nzenze was the second born, the most hardworking and thoughtful of them all. He knew how to farm, fish, hunt, and carve wood. He was tall, with broad shoulders, deep brown eyes, and the calm strength of a man who understood the language of the soil. In his youth, Nzenze fell in love with Annie, the daughter of Chief Mbizo, the wealthiest man in Udo. Annie was known far and wide. Her beauty could quiet a crowd. Her laughter could melt the hardest heart. But her beauty came with pride. She was raised in riches and had never known hunger. Her mother dressed her in fine cloths from traders who passed through from Harare and Mozambique. Every young man in Udo dreamed of marrying her, but she rejected them all with words that cut deeper than a spear. There was a time when Kutaplashi, a brave hunter, brought her the skin of a lion he killed with his bare hands. Annie laughed and said, "Go wash your hands of the lion's blood before coming to speak to me." He left humiliated. Another time, a well-known blacksmith named Toby came with gifts of iron bracelets and a goat. Annie told him, "Even my father's dogs wear better chains than those." Some men left in anger, others in shame. But Nzenze was different. He came with nothing, no goats, no iron, no jewels. He came only with a calabash of palm wine and his heart full of love. When he stood before Chief Mbizo, the chief looked him from toe to head and burst into laughter. "This one?" he said. "This poor man wants to marry my daughter?" The guards joined in the laughter. Annie stood nearby, silent, her face unreadable. That day, Nzenze walked home with dust on his feet and tears in his eyes. The pain of that rejection burned deep inside him. He vowed that one day he would return, not as a beggar, but as a man the whole village would bow before. Years passed. Nzenze left Udo and traveled through the dry plains, across rivers and forests, until he reached the trade towns near Bulawayo. There he met foreign merchants, tall men with strange accents and bright clothes. They traded in salt, beads, herbs, and animal skins. Nzenze learned fast. He worked hard, saved every coin, and slowly built his fortune. He became known as the man who could find anything: ivory, honey, gold dust, and trade it for good profit. By the time he returned to Udo, he was a rich man. He came back with camels, horses, and fine clothes. The dust of poverty was gone from his feet.
When the drums of his arrival sounded, people poured into the streets. Even Chief Mbizo came out to greet him. And when Annie saw him again, her heart beat faster than it ever had before. He was taller, stronger, his voice deeper and full of confidence. For the first time in her life, Annie felt something she couldn't control: love. She became gentle, shy, even humble, and soon after, their marriage was announced. The wedding was grand. Drums shook the hills, dancers filled the roads, and wine flowed like water. But the gods, though silent, were watching. At first, Annie thought her dreams had come true. She lived in a tall house Nzenze built with his own wealth, the only one of its kind in Udo. It stood high like a watchtower, and from the top room where Annie lived, she could see the river, the market, and the mountains far away. Servants brought her everything. She never lifted a hand. She never went down to the courtyard. But as days turned into months, she began to feel trapped. The silence of the tall house became her prison. Her husband was always away on business. She had gold, silk, and servants, but not love. Then, one evening, from her window, she saw a young man passing, strong, bare-chested, with the glow of freedom in his walk. She called to him softly, and he looked up. That moment became the beginning of her ruin. Soon, with the help of her servants, she made a rope from the blinds and cloths and began sneaking down at night to meet her lover behind the tall trees. Their affair grew wild and secret, burning like hidden fire. But secrets do not last forever. Nzenze's servant Kemba discovered her secret. He struggled with fear, but finally told Nzenze upon his return. When Nzenze heard the words, he trembled. His world shook. Still, he refused to act without proof. He went to Annie's family and called for a meeting with the elders of both houses. The gathering was tense. Old men with gray beards sat around the fire, the smell of snuff thick in the air. Annie sat beside her father, her face calm, but her eyes sharp as a blade. Nzenze spoke slowly, his voice filled with pain. She has dishonored me," he said. "Let her swear before the gods if she is pure." Annie rose gracefully and smiled faintly. "I am not afraid of truth," she said. Her mother wept. Chief Mbizo kept silent. It was agreed that they would all go to the shrine of the great god Mwari, who punished liars and blessed the innocent. The next morning, the people gathered under the ancient Iroko tree. As they waited for the priest to begin the ceremony, a madman suddenly ran from the bushes, shouting, laughing, tearing at the air. Before anyone could stop him, he stumbled onto Annie, grabbing her by the waist and falling at her feet. The crowd shouted in shock. Nzenze rushed forward and fought the madman, beating him fiercely until people dragged them apart. Annie cried loudly, blaming her husband for shaming her before the gods. Then, when calm returned, the priest asked her to speak. She placed her hand on the sacred stone and said, "If I have ever known another man apart from my husband, may the gods strike me down this day. Only my husband and that madman have ever seen my nakedness." The crowd murmured. The priest looked up to the sky. The air was still. The gods did not answer. The priest nodded slowly. "The gods are silent. She is innocent." Nzenze fell to his knees. He could not believe it. The spy, Kemba, looked down in shame, and Annie stood there smiling, the proud smile of a woman who had fooled both men and gods. For many moons afterwards, she grew even prouder. She mocked her husband's silence, insulted Kemba, and even laughed at the gods in secret. But the earth does not forget, and the spirits of Udo are patient. Soon, her beauty began to fade. Her skin lost its glow. Her hair turned dry. She could no longer sleep at night. She would wake screaming, saying she heard voices calling her from the river. Her secret lover disappeared one night and never returned. No one knew what happened to him. Some said the gods took him, others said he ran mad in the forest. Annie grew weak and thin. Her servants abandoned her. Nzenze pitied her but could not save her. One morning, she went to the river, knelt beside the water, and whispered, "The gods may be wise, but love makes fools of them too." Then she walked into the river and never came out again. From that day, people of Udo say that when the wind passes over the river at dusk, it carries a woman's cry, half sorrow, half laughter. And the elders still remind the young men with a warning. Not even the god is wise enough to catch a woman in love.